Good morning, Inebri-art. I say morning, just because I think it's fun because today's guest is probably I should be saying good evening to. Is it
It's like late afternoon, 4
late?
p.m.
Okay, all right. In Glasgow, we are joined today by Jocelyn of Walt Disco. Welcome to the
Yes.
show.
I'm happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
So, I got we get the press releases and all that sort of thing, and I hadn't heard of you guys, and one of the things that I always try to think about is like, okay, how am I going to explain to my audience like what kind of music they play, and so immediately I started listening to you guys
Mm.
when I was in the car the other day, and I was taken back to my college roommate.
Yeah.
It definitely sounded like something he would listen to, and it was weird because I'm trying to remember what the description in the press release was, but to me it felt very kind of like Goth Kid, Susie Sue, Typo Negative. I'm trying to
Mm.
remember the other bands that he used to listen to, but I'm like, that's definitely the kind of feel that's coming. Like, do you feel that's a fair example? Is that kind of like where
Yeah,
you?
yeah, that sort of stuff was like the kind of a big influence on us when we started, like 80s goth stuff, like especially like Scottish stuff, like Cocktail Twins, Blue Nile
Talk
Associates.
to that's I didn't even think of them. He used to
Yeah,
listen to them all the time. That's a
yeah,
perfect
yeah.
example. Yeah,
So,
yeah.
um, and like, yeah, we've kind of like use that as a basis, and then our influences obviously grew as we've gotten older and as we've lived in music, and then like the first album drew from electronic music a lot, like modern, like more modern stuff, and then like now we've moved on with this new album, we've kind of uh moved on to like a more organic studio-y sound,
Yeah.
like but whilst keeping sort of the synths in there, but in a more sort of like early synthesizer way. Like big fans of like Wendy Carlos and like Keyboard Fantasies by Beverly Glenn Copeland and stuff like that. Um, so yeah, we've got a wide range of influences,
Yeah.
but obviously just sort of the early influences always come through a bit, especially with like vocal stylings and
Yeah.
guitar tones and stuff.
And it's always tough trying to like
Yeah.
you're trying to I don't want to say pigeonhole, but like you're trying to come up with like, okay, what does this band sound like? And at the same time, not pigeonhole them. It's pretty tough. But
Yeah, yeah.
you just made me think of it. I had a really funny experience recently. So I was telling you before we started recording that I live in Plymouth, and a
Mm.
new like independent newspaper started up,
Oh, nice.
and so for our local show, I brought in the editor in chief, who I had kind of known just from around town or whatever, and we get
Mhm.
to talking, and we're talking about Plymouth and what it is to be independent and not beholden to anybody,
Mhm.
and I don't remember how it came up, and he's like blah blah. He's like, yeah, that's when I was on tour with Ministry, and I'm like, wait, what? And
Mhm.
he's like, that's when I was playing keyboards for Ministry, and I'm like,
Mhm.
what? And like when Ministry was like opening for the Police, like he was their touring keyboardist.
Oh wow,
Yeah, it's so funny. Yeah,
yeah, amazing.
yeah. So you guys have a new album coming out.
Yeah,
June 14th, The Warping.
yeah, yeah.
And so what is this kind of like a post-COVID project? What did you guys write a lot during COVID?
So
Um,
yeah, our um first album was our COVID album.
okay.
That learning was that was kind of that was like wrote and produced in bedroom during lockdown, that kind of vibe. And then uh this one was kind like was like as I kind of was saying before that like influenced by like the new stuff we were listening to, but slightly in a reaction to being forced to make a music in our bedroom when that's not like the entire band we are quite grandiose, and a sort of we thought what's opposite to bedroom produced like dance dance influence record, like have a orchestra, like and like Scott Walker, like Bjork,
Yeah.
like that sort of like grandeur.
So
Um,
did you enjoy doing this one more than the original one? Because you've
I mean, it was it was it definitely felt more like what we imagined a band making album would be like. You know,
yeah.
going to studio and sleeping over in the studio and bringing in like a string quartet and you know, all that stuff. So it was nice to have to get that. Um, but like we still like kept sort of the ethos of how we made the first album of like getting the demo in a really good place and getting the electronics and the drum machines all really strong, and then starting from there, and then like adding all the organic things like last this time. And it just made it feel like so 3D, and like I'm proud of like the world we built. Um, I like on both records, but like yeah, we once we had our mind set on this kind of theatrical, um, orchestrated theatrical, yeah, like world, we
Yeah.
you know couldn't get our heads out of our heads, so we just had to make it. And like because we're not like a rich band, or like you know our label can't give us endless amounts of money, so we had to do it like on a shoestring. Like we had a day with the string quartet, a day with the like the brass, and a day with the woodwind, and it was like they were stressful days because we were like like
Yeah. Let's go, let's go, let's go. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. But like I mean, it was made easier because like the those musicians are just incredible. Like the string quartet did like 10 songs in 6 hours. Like didn't make a
Wow.
mistake. Like, yeah, like you know, mental stuff.
Um when you're doing stuff like that, like I've always kind of wondered, most and maybe I'm making a broad assumption that's wrong, but I feel like most rock musicians don't have kind of experience with an orchestra and
Mm.
transposing
Yeah, yeah.
different. So do you kind of like give them the music and then be like, come up with something cool, or do you guys like actually write out the
So,
sheet music for them?
what happened? The way we did it was we we like brought up like samples of uh like orchestral instruments
Yeah.
and arranged it just with like a keyboard, like
Mm-hmm.
MIDI, uh, and uh sort of gave that got that to a pretty good state, and then we brought on a co-producer because we like co-produced the album, called Chris McCrory, and he was like, how can we take that to the next level? And he was like, I can't do it, but you know, let's find someone
Yeah.
like who do you? And then I was like, oh, there's a guy called Craig Meekman he played trombone on this like cover we did, and he'd helped us already like do some orchestral arrangements on one track that we had on the record. And I was like, well, he's great. I know he's great, and he did it. So we gave it to him, asked him to write out the sheet music, but also just like if you want to add things or like just embellish things in any way, like please do. And then so it came from like a lot from our minds, but then a lot from Craig's mind, and then the players had sheet music that he brought out to play to. So we didn't do that. We no
Yeah,
no.
because it's a
Basically,
lot, and it's like I never. To me, it's one of those like beautiful mind moments when it's like you can, it's hard enough thinking like bass, guitar, lead guitar,
yeah,
drum, but you're like, okay, what's the piccolo doing at this point? And just
yeah,
there's
yeah,
so many options, and
yeah,
it's pretty impressive when they can do that sort of thing.
yeah, yeah, totally. It's really nice, when you're doing that sort of music, like the the track does just start to like be painted out in front of you, like it's mixed by the way an orchestra is mixed, in the sense that some instruments are very like trebly, some influences are very airy, like instruments are very in your face, and so all that stuff. Um, so yeah, it was nice to build it up that way. Yeah.
Was it intimidating at all bringing in these other musicians to play your music? And like, was there ever a point you're like, no, 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 you're doing it wrong?
I mean,
I feel like that could be,
we kind of, uh, because we had Craig, who was the arranger, there as like the first point of contact for those
yeah,
auditions, like who can do all that sort of thing. That made it easier. And you know what? They had like this respect for us. They were like, I don't know how you do this. Like, I don't know how you compose like music from start to finish with words and everything, because like they have came into music doing a totally different thing.
yeah,
Not that none of them have ever composed anything, but just like in full on songwriting, I don't know. They had a respect for. So it was kind of like we were just like sitting there saying, I don't know how you do this, and they were just saying the same thing back to us. So it was quite nice actually. They were
yeah,
valid, you know.
yeah. It's cool when you like you meet creative people that kind of like they understand kind of the creative process, but at the same time, they're still like, that's amazing that you can do that. And you're like, well, your cooking is amazing. I don't know,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
it's great that you can kind of like appreciate each other, even though you're both
Yeah, yeah.
doing similar type things. That's cool.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I think as a musician, you are along with other many art forms, but I know about being a musician, like you're forced to sort of be aware of so many art forms, and and you just have to trust your taste.
Yep.
Uh, because you, and like because you have to commission artwork. Often you're quite involved in that. You have to commission music videos, and there's often not much budget for that, so you have to do a lot of that yourselves, and you have to make sure that you like the ideas. So often you're very much involved in the storyboarding and stuff, but like it is like slightly scary because it's not your area of expertise. So you sometimes like just feel like you're doing this thing completely blind. But um, I guess like the confidence of just being able to wing things in the way that we have in music a lot of the time, like winging producing a record, winging telling what like violin and players are to do, even though we don't play violin and all that stuff. Like it's nice, but scary.
That's kind of the Inebri-art way of doing things is like we commit to stuff and then we figure it out as we go.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
I always jokingly, say to my friends, and they're like, "How are you going to do that?" I'm like, "I don't know. That's future Andy's problem."
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah,
I'll be, but past Andy is an asshole
yeah,
because he's
yeah,
always
yeah,
dumping stuff on me, and it's
yeah,
just this kind of. But to me, that's what I love. I love the challenge. We just came this past weekend. We had like 5 different events in 3 days, and of course, nothing goes according to plan, and there's a bunch of
yeah,
hiccups and but part of what I love about it is that kind of problem solving
yeah,
on the fly, being like, how are we gonna do this? And you just kind of
yeah.
the hectic nature, and it's
Yeah.
yeah,
It feels quite romantic, and like it feels like you're just building up like endless stories when you're just sort of always cobbling together stuff. And sometimes you get mad, you're like, how is this not planned? How is this not planned? But just it's just like everyone's kind of doing that. Like with this music video on Wednesday, we're filming a music video on Wednesday, and like uh this is the exact same problem actually always comes up. And we always come and think of it last minute. Like one, we're like, all right, we need all our instruments there.
yeah,
So we need a van, and we
yep,
never have. So kind of sorted that. And then we're like, right, we need like a keyboard to to mime with. Um, but one that like is pretty enough to be in a music video because like keyboards are often really ugly.
Right. Yeah, they're just yeah.
So we were like,
Especially shooting them from the back because that's like where all the inputs are. Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So we were like being like scrambling and like, where has anyone got like a wallet, sir? Because like all of our keyboard sounds are often like either some mad computer sound or whatever. Like, but like we have this like we had a copy of a sort of 70s electric piano. And like, has anyone got one of these? And then like my mate was like, "Oh, there's this empty electric organ shell outside your like a room in our studio complex." And he was like, "You can grab that." So I was like, "All right." So that's where I was today. Like I got the bus there, like lifted the wooden thing into my studio, and then took a picture of it, and was like, well, at first I tried to fit our keyboard in it, like to see if it fit the shell, and I was like, "Oh no, it doesn't." So now we're like, I've found something to solve a problem, but created another
Created
one.
another problem.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then
And
so I was like, because I've got this podcast and I had other things to do. I was like, right, to our keyboard player, I was like, you find a 44 key keyboard, and he was like, that's not a standard size, and I was like, I don't.
figure it
I,
out.
yeah.
Yeah.
But
It's
part of me loves it because it's very like side questy, like vibe.
yeah. Very much. That's a great way. And I always tell people, I'm like, I have the weirdest job and I get to sometimes have to do weird things. And we ran events in a town green yesterday, and someone's like, "Oh, I thought that would be this other green," and I'm like, "Well, interesting story." I'm like, "This one you have to get the permission from the town. That
Yeah,
one you have to get permission from federal government because it's federal land."
yeah,
And
yeah,
and we had to do this to get the permission from the army, and they're like, "How do you know?" I'm like, "It's just my life, I'm the guy who
yeah,
has to email the army to get permission to do stuff,
yeah, yeah,
and it's just weird. But
yeah,
no, I love that kind of idea of like, okay, this solves a problem but causes another one, but it's a smaller problem than the original problem, so let's
yeah,
go
yeah,
with this.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I love that.
yeah. Like
Very-
the music videos are the number one example of this, but like the pure like director that we work with, Eric, um, and then his DOP Casper, we work with both of them. Like, they've went to film school because they love film and they want to direct and maybe write films and stuff. And obviously, when you're young, music videos are often the way to get into that and make money and stuff.
yeah,
Uh, but like the amount of stuff that he has to do that isn't making like actually filming and editing and storyboarding is crazy. Like stuff like if a band that he works with wants to be in a park that's owned by
yeah,
federal government, he also has to like
yeah.
be that.
Or you'd be like, I need to use this building. Who owns this build? How do I get the permission to use this
Yeah,
building? Who is that guy? Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
it's
He probably
it,
knows every building manager in the city.
and
Yeah.
it's one of those things. It's like I feel like my job is very rewarding. I really like it.
Mhm.
Um, but I feel like the what I like is about 30%, and the other 70% is emailing the people that I don't want to, and getting this permit and checking up on this and ordering this and all the crap that you do so you can really enjoy that 30%. Sometimes you're like, is it
Yeah,
worth it? And you're like, oh, I could have a job where I like 5% of it,
yeah, yeah, exactly.
and
Yeah.
so I'm like, yeah, I feel like really, really enjoying 30% of your work
Yeah,
life is
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, totally. Yeah. And I saw like I feel like uh TikTok of like Tyler the Creator, like talking about how like artists, like he was talking about musicians, but I guess it relates to everyone else, like being like stop being embarrassed about promoting and working in on your like at promoting your art, like which I count as all of the shit things, like all of the
Yep.
emailing, all that stuff. Like when you know obsessed over like snare sounds and like uh I don't know, got 10 mixes back, or you paid someone to master it. We went to three different studios, like demoed it for a year, like, and then you're embarrassed to say it's out and that you like it and people should listen to it, and you complain about filming the music video and all that stuff. Like you're like, it's like, what are you doing? Like, I know it's sometimes hard and you want to just do the thing that you love, but it's not quite really the world we live in, and only a few artists get to just do what they do and everyone loves it, because
Yeah.
it's not just talent that gets them there. It's like it's luck, those types of artists, and the rest of us have to just do it the way everyone else
Yeah,
does.
and there's like that's such a good point because like there's so many creative people, illustrators and whatnot that you look and you're like, how are you not like
Hmm.
wealthy doing what you're doing?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
they don't. You can go to art school and
Mhm.
learn to be a great artist, but there's not. I shouldn't say there isn't. When I went there, there wasn't like a class on like how to promote yourself as an artist,
Yeah,
how
yeah,
to
yeah.
get gigs,
Yeah,
and that's like it's tough, it's uncomfortable because it's really putting yourself out there
yeah,
because you hope that people like it, but not everyone's going to like it, and some
yeah,
people
yeah,
aren't nice when they don't like it.
yeah, yeah,
um so yeah, so it can be really challenging to, I mean, that's kind of why you guys hire PR people too.
yeah, yeah.
you know
Exactly. But
but
yeah, but yeah, like every step is a baby step, and like I've been like so like tired with it at times, like, and just being like, oh, what's the point in this little thing? Like, or this, I don't know, whatever it is. And it's just like, but like all those baby steps do add up.
yeah, and
Uh,
it kind of sneaks up on you. Like one day you're like, wait, do you
yeah,
remember when we were,
yeah,
recording in our bedrooms, or like four people would show up at our shows, or like whatever,
yeah,
that little
yeah,
annoying thing that you look back and they're like, oh yeah, that doesn't happen anymore,
yeah, 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 exactly.
yeah.
Yeah. Uh, I don't know, whatever it is. Even doing like your accounting, like, I don't know, like, because you're a business, like, it's like, I don't know, like, it is somewhat rewarding to know that
Yeah.
kind of
It,
director of a business, and
it's that, honestly, that is one of those moments that I kind of, when I realized like how much we've grown,
yeah, yeah,
is I remember when we started this, I would, be like, we need to have a meeting, and me and my business partner would get together and be like, all right, our microphone really sucks. We need to get upgraded. And we really need it, and it's like $100. Do we really want to spend $100? And now I'll just text him and be like, hey man, I dropped 4 grand, blah blah
yeah,
blah, on such and such, and he'd be like, okay.
yeah,
And it's just like what
yeah,
the amount that you worry about is so much different, and you're like, oh, we have come a long way.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. No, no, absolutely.
So I saw that you guys are going to be touring the states
Hmm.
in coming this fall.
Yeah,
Are
yeah.
you bringing an orchestra, or like, or how are
No,
you?
no, no. We because we're still on a like pretty tight, very tight budget even, and so we figured out how to sort of recreate the album with like synths, and then our guitar player has this pedal called a Mel 9, which
Mhm.
like uh works like a mellotron. Like it turns your guitar into a mellotron sounds, so you can get like flute and string sounds and
Oh,
stuff.
cool.
So the mixture of Finley playing the orchestra on keys and then Lewis playing the mellotron on guitar sometimes, we managed to include all of the orchestral parts. But yeah, we always get creative. Like for example, like on the opener Gnomes, there's this like mad synth part that kind of sounds like, in like Bill and Ted where they go like like, yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
It's like a synth part that does that on the recording. It sounds so cool and like weirdo and stuff. But live, Finley was already doing like the cello part or something like that on his keys. So we were just like, Lewis, just do the feel like Bill and Ted
Yeah.
thing. It's just like feels so awesome and like yeah yeah. But I really like it. I really like how we slightly changed things up for live, and I'm glad that we can do it with just the five of us.
Is this your first trip to the States?
We it's our first like big trip. We went to South by Southwest in 2022, and
Yeah.
then we went back in fall 2022 um, to New York, Austin, and LA. Just kind of a little short 10
Yeah.
day thing. Played a few gigs in each city. Um, but yeah, so excited. Gonna be doing it in quite a little van. But
Yeah.
driving.
I have some friends that have toured, and I'm like, what is that like? And they're like, oh, it's it's a thing that you do, and they find ways to kind of make life easier. Like they one of them bought or a couple of them bought like platinum memberships to like this national gym.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah,
wherever they stopped off, they could like bring
yeah,
in like the whole band and shower and whatever.
yeah,
And
yeah, yeah,
I'm like, oh yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It's kind of like it's like that problem, that creative problem solving, that like
yeah, yeah.
how are we gonna
Totally.
do this as cheap as possible is
Yeah. I mean, yeah, you can't have too many people working on stuff like that. We have, four people working with us on this tour. Only two of them will be on, well, maybe five actually, if you include a photographer. And we're all like always thinking about ways, to make it easier. Um, but yeah, I I mean, it makes touring the UK seem complete like an absolute doddle.
yeah.
But like, especially when you get to England, the drives are like maximum like 3 hours. But in the States,
That
like,
won't even get you out of Texas.
yeah, 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 exactly.
Yeah.
It's like all the drives are like 8 hours and all this stuff, and there's a 4 day drive one day and one time. So yeah, crazy.
Yeah. That's cool. But you get to see, a lot of the country.
Right through Death Valley, which I'm very excited
Oh,
for.
that's cool. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, so something else that I saw in the press release was that Tilda Swinton said that you guys are their favorite new band, favorite up and coming band. I forget exactly how it's phrased. How how did that happen? Like I love their movies.
Uh,
Um,
we our like photographer Rosie has like a family connection
yeah,
slightly. Like yeah, like her granddad used to work with her dad.
yeah,
Uh, and but yeah, she was just at this festival we were playing, and uh, yeah, she watched us, but she didn't know that Rosie, our
yeah,
photographer, had a connection to us. She was just watching us, but it was like pouring down the rain, and like it started off as an okay crowd, it became a very small crowd, but
yeah,
until the Swinton stayed the whole time in the pouring rain, and then we chatted to her for loads afterwards, and yeah, she thought it was great and stuff. So yeah,
yeah. That's so cool. It's like it always it's so strange. It's like I'm being a podcaster, we don't have like an audience as much, so like
yeah, yeah,
we see the numbers and you
yeah,
see the
yeah.
numbers go up and go down and blah blah. But then like you'll run into someone. It happened to me not too long ago where I was like walking through a brewery and I was talking to a friend of mine. This guy's like, "Hey," and I'm like, "What?" He goes, "Your voice," and I'm like, "What? What about it?" He's like, "You're from that podcast," and I was just like, yeah," and it just
Wow,
like be
that's cool.
I feel like that's got to be like kind of the same thing where not only is it a fan, but it's like kind of that fan, like I know who you are and you know who
Yeah,
we are. Like that's got it. That I just feel like
Yeah.
that has to be like surreal.
I mean, yeah. I mean, it's weird. I mean, even like touring with like OMD was just like, they asked us because they liked us.
Yeah.
Like we obviously like love their music and so aware of their music. And like Jack's mom's first 7 inch was like Souvenir by OMD, and like and everything. Like, she came to the Edinburgh show and they like signed that record that she bought,
Oh,
and
that's cool.
so it's just yeah. But
Yeah.
it's like it's hard to comprehend that sort of stuff. Um, but I guess you kind of have to if you want to. If we want to get to where we want to get, that sort of stuff, we hope will happen.
Yeah.
But also, the main thing is about building up like a fan base rather than just making celebrity fans. So like,
Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, it doesn't hurt if they have a following and,
yeah, I don't know. Yeah,
share your music or from a concert or something like that. That can be a huge thing.
yeah.
Um, do you are you the kind of how do you feel about compliments? I feel like a lot of creative people can kind of it makes them uncomfortable. Like, are
I'm pretty bad.
you?
Pretty bad at taking them. Uh, on that tour we were just on, we we were selling our own merch,
Yeah.
uh, and so that was like baptism of fire into dealing with compliments. uh, and people wanting a photo and people wanting signatures and all that stuff. It's like just doesn't feel normal. I don't think that will ever feel normal. And like, yeah, but yeah, it was a lot of like, thank you so much. But all being like so nervous and like that was like I didn't need a drink for the. I'd never drink before the show. I didn't even need one after the show. But if we were doing merch,
Yeah.
I needed a few beers. Like, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, it's it's so cool to see something you make affect people in that way.
yeah,
But
yeah.
again, it's so like weird. Like I did a public art thing and people, they they would a bunch of people like put up they made like a fiberglass statue and it had a bunch of different artists paint the same statue a bunch of different ways and it was all over Plymouth. And they made a bunch of merch to go, puzzles and posters and shit like that.
Mhm.
And they would be like, oh, we're gonna do this charity thing, can you guys meet up on this day and sign a bunch of the posters? And you're like, I mean, I guess, yeah, sure, why not?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it's just that, like, why? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it is it's a fun feeling, like.
Oh, it is.
Yeah. So what's next for the band? Like, are you guys already working on the next album? Like, are you that far into? Because I feel like bands now are so, back 80s, 70s, like they'd make an album, they'd tour and support the album, they'd have
Mhm.
downtime, they'd start working on the next album. But
Yeah, yeah,
now with like social media being, it just feels like you constantly have to be
yeah,
trying to put something out or make something new.
yeah. I mean, it's like we kind of had that break in between the first and the second one because we kind of, for various, well, like I remember left right as we were releasing the first album, so we were kind of like a bit shaken by that, and touring it was quite difficult because we were figuring out like this new lineup,
Yeah.
like as we were promoting that album, and um, so like last year. But we'd already kind of, but this was 2022, and but we've been writing in the time we had off the warping, and then recorded it at the start of 2023. But the plan wasn't to put it out till this year. So we kind of had downtime last year, just kind of refiguring things out, and it was tough. Like downtime as like a musician and an artist kind of is hard, but we, you know, ended up doing a lot of the record after, like the third
Yeah.
record, stuff like that. So, um, but it definitely kind of gave us, I don't know, fire up our asses to not have another year like that for a little bit because we just feel energized and young, and this is what we're supposed to be doing. So we just kind of want to just do it as much as we can. Like, so we want to record the next one as soon as possible, and we want to tour when we're not recording for the next few years.
Yeah.
And so yeah, uh,
Yeah.
but
I, I,
nice,
I
nice stuff. But it is also it's slightly influenced. It's like, well, like our label and stuff are like, well, I'm glad you want to do that because it's not a bad idea because Spotify and streaming platforms do reward you for putting out lots of music, and and people have a shorter attention like memory nowadays, and that
oh
if you're
yeah.
if you're away for a year, they're like, have they broke up? Are you still going? Or whatever,
Yep. Do
so
you remember this old school band from 2 years ago? Yeah, that kind of yeah.
yeah,
It
exactly.
dressed yeah.
Massive
Um
hiatus of 2 years, people hiatuses of like of 10 years, you know what I mean?
yeah, it just seems so crazy and I'm like we put out the show once a week and then the other than scheduling a guest, like the work in advance is practically minimal. It's just the
Yeah.
idea of having to like write and create. Who's I interviewed the lead singer of Bad Bad Hats recently, and she said that they have Patreon members, and for their Patreon members, every month they write a new song in a different style, which I love. It's because I'm like, that's a great like creative practice to do. But
Yeah.
it's just the idea of like, oh my God, you have to do that every single month,
Yeah.
And
Yeah. No,
it feels
there's so
daunting.
so much little stuff like that. Like even like we're promoting our record. Like, and I just got the vinyls there over there, which is really exciting. And like, our label were like, "Oh, can you do like an unboxing? But can you like get creative with it? Because like, it often helps like push sales and all that." So it's like this thing that was kind of like originally just an advert. Hello, this is our
Yeah.
spot record, like that sort of thing. Becomes like, oh, how can we put our own spin on it? How can we put our personality with it? It's just like, oh, we could kind of, you know, use the styles of like kind of surreal French cinema to,
Yeah.
like that, like literally an advert becomes this massive creative
Yeah.
project for you that like, you'll get money from it. You're selling stuff, but like you don't get that money straight away.
Right.
Well, you see that money, like you end up doing a lot of work for like what seems to be no money. Um, but yeah, it's just what we've chosen.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where it's like, you know, Taylor Swift has a team that'll do that,
Yeah,
for her.
yeah,
And
yeah,
on a band like yourself, you're like, okay, this is, there's only so many human hours in a day, and I should probably spend some of those sleeping.
yeah,
Um, like if I do that, what am I taking out of my day
yeah, yeah,
to, and I do not like downtime. I am not a sit around the
yeah,
house kind of person. Um, but yeah, I get it. Like where you're just like, oh, this would be cool to do. I don't I don't have the brain power or the time,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
like can I have a friend do it? How am I gonna get that done? Yeah, it can be really challenging.
You have to. It's quite cool, like, because like if in a couple of years we get to the point where we maybe don't need to do so much ourselves, like have all learned a lot. Uh, and like maybe at the point where we stop doing all of this stuff for ourselves, we will start to feel like, I don't know, less a part of it. Like, well, it will obviously be great to be able to just completely focus on making music and touring,
Yeah.
and that part of things can only get better if we are allowed to do that. But also, like, it does, it is. maybe I've got Stockholm syndrome, but there's a slight the slight romantic part to it.
Yeah.
Like, uh,
No, but I feel like there's probably some of it where you have more control over it too. You know, like if you're that Taylor Swift level, I only use her because I saw her album at the store today. Um, but like I'm sure she shows up and they're like, well, this is the wardrobe you have to pick from these limited things. But where you like, I can wear what I want.
yeah,
I
yeah,
can, there's more that I have to do, but there's more things that I can control and
yeah,
have my way.
yeah. And I think like a lot of the time, like artists who like Caroline Polachek kind of didn't get huge straight away, and so same with like St. Vincent and stuff. Like, and I think because they came up in their career doing a lot themselves, they've never like fully relinquished control in so many sides of things. Like, so I imagine like Aloe was a huge hand in music videos and artwork and you know, and like we all will and stuff like that.
And hunting down keyboards.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Like at the moment, I'm just doing it and not getting much money for it. But if like I'm fine for money and I have some spare time, then it'll be enjoyable to go
Right.
on.
Yeah.
Go,
Makes it easier when you can be
yeah,
like, I'm not looking for the abandoned, organ. I'm
I can
on
just pay for it maybe
pay
in
for it. Yeah. Yeah.
eBay. Exactly. Oh, and I
Um
get to use this organ for maybe music as well. Like you know
yeah.
what I mean?
So the warpening comes out June 14th.
Mhm.
The warping, not the warpening. Sorry.
The
Just want a little
warping.
little Highlander added to it there.
Yeah.
So the warping comes out June 14th. Where is it available? Where can people find out your tour dates? All the
Uh,
business stuff.
It's available from many good record stores, and from our labels website, Lucky Number Music, and we're coming to America in September and October, supporting O&D.
Do you know wwhereabouts? You gonna be in the Boston
It's
area?
we're doing Boston, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's coast to coast, so we should be just about hitting somewhere near everyone.
Nice. I'll have to try and
Yeah,
see if I can fit that on my schedule. It's far enough
yeah,
out. I shouldn't have anything.
yeah. Cool.
Uh,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We'll love to meet you in person.
yeah. Boston's a great town. If Massachusetts people, there's three basic reactions you'll get. They'll either be rude to you because they're rude, nice because they're kind of indifferent, but then like if they like you, they're still kind of rude to you.
Yeah, Glasgow's
Yeah.
like that's
Is
kind
it?
of
Okay.
Glasgow to be fair, so yeah, we'll find that easy.
Yeah. Because I always like we work with a lot of bars and restaurants, and I'll go in and there'll be a new person and they'll be like, hey, how can I help you today? And I'll be like, don't do that. Like it makes you feel unwelcome when you're nice to me.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
like, I'm just broken in that way. And they'll be like,
yeah,
oh, okay.
yeah.
Yeah. So, but yeah, no, I think you guys will dig the town, and we're looking forward to catching your show when you're here.
Right, yeah, I can't wait. Right.
So, listeners, go check out Walt Disco. I'm assuming you're on socials like
Yeah, yeah,
Facebook and
and
Instagram and all that crap.
all the streaming
All,
platforms.
all, all the
Yeah,
stuff. Do you
yeah,
guys
yeah.
do the did you guys do the TikTok?
We do have TikTok. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Links.
We have one, and
Yeah,
my youngest is like, your TikTok is garbage.
yeah.
And I'm like,
Well,
I know, I'm too old. I don't really want to
I
learn it.
feel too old for TikTok a lot of the time, so
Yeah.
don't feel bad.
And it's funny, like they're killing it on it. They just got a new design job, and they do a lot of like digital artwork, and they're posting all the time, and I'm like, help your dad out, do some stuff for your dad.
Yeah,
And they're like, are you gonna pay me? I'm like, I mean, maybe.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
But no, it's cool. Yeah, so thanks for talking with us. It's fun. And sorry to interrupt your keyboard hunt.
No,
Um,
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe something found whilst I've been on this podcast. So, yeah.
So yeah, this yeah, I told the listeners to go check you guys out. I already did that. I'm rambling now. But yeah, listeners, you can check us again. We'll be back next Monday as always, and we'll see you then. And thanks for checking out the show today, listeners. If you enjoyed the content today, you can go over to patreon.com/Inebri-art to support the show. You can join over there for just a few dollars a month and help us provide this fun content that you just checked out. You can also email us at Inebri-art.com with your questions, complaints, and concerns, or you can find us on all social medias at Inebri-art or at Inebri-art6 on Instagram. And also don't forget to check out our other shows, Bar Talk Podcast, Old Colony Cast, Inebri-art, and all the other shows on the Inebri-art Network, which you can find at Inebri-art.com. Thanks again for listening.